Good afternoon and welcome to this review for Knight's Master by Tanith Lee. What I've got here is this rather nice little arrow book. They were around everywhere in Australia in the late 80s, early 90s, and at one stage I think I had the whole, up until the last one at least, in this livery. I don't have them all anymore. I kind of regret it. I really like this livery. And what you've got is this gorgeous cover. You've got a girl with remarkably perky breasts staring up at a stained glass windows in which is lounging who we're going to assume is Knight's Master, the king demon of the underworld. But then you've got the wraparound cover showing there the legend icon, which took me a while to look up. And at the back you've got this grey stained glass window that ends up being a reflection of the stained glass window, only with one without any sun coming through, so you can still see exactly the same imagery, and you've got that rather pretty peacock down at the bottom. Now this cover is allegedly by Mick Posson. He didn't do the original cover, but I really do like these ones. And as you look throughout it, you'll see a number of line drawings that are quite clearly labelled G bar, very relevant to the story. Very nice little line drawings, and I think they are by Greg Bye, if I'm not mistaken, and I think he did the illustrations for the original edition. There's not a lot of them, but they're nice when you find them. I'll see if I can find another one. So anyway, it's been a while since I read this book. I had read it a couple of times before. And I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of controversy happening on the internets at the moment about Tanith Lee and a certain other author, and I wanted to check for myself. I've got quite a bit of Tanith Lee that is on my to-read shelf. Some I haven't read at all, some I haven't read for so long that I can't remember them. But I skipped straight ahead to Knight's Master because that is the first one from 1978, and the Tales from the Flat Earth. Having read so much about the flat earth, none of it really squared with my memories of it. So that was interesting. Okay, so I was a bit sad to find out that I didn't have the second in the series, which I believe is Death's Master or Death's Mistress or something like that. Or is it Knight's Mistress? Anyway, I don't have the second one. I do have the third and the fourth. And the final one in the series, I believe, came out much, much later. I don't have that. I've never read that one. That's, I think, the only one from the series I've never read. So what happens in Knight's Master? It is all about Knight's Master, who does look, I guess, kind of reminiscent to the portrait here. His name is Azaran, or something like that I can't pronounce. Luckily, I don't have to on the day-to-day basis. Azhran. He is the Prince of Demons, and he resides in the underworld. Tanith Lee has this beautiful style of writing which she uses in her fantasy. It's this combination of mythic element, and the mythic element in this one is very strong. There's an element of a modern fairy tale being told to you as well. So between the mythic and the fairy tale, you have a very elaborate and lush storytelling style. And this book really is about the writing. The writing is beautiful. The stories are good, but it is the writing that brings them home. And you could probably enjoy the writing for itself without spending too much time on the stories. But here they are. It's presented in a book 1, book 2, and each book has different parts to it. So book 1, Light Underground, talks about how the Prince of Demons adopts a young boy called Sivesh and raises him in his kingdom, and then falls in love with him. And by the way, in the young adult sphere of the book spaces, they call sex spice for some reason that is uncomprehendable to me. But in terms of spicy, as they call it, I'm going to say a pinch of cane, a lot of cinnamon, a fair bit of ground cardamom. There is spice, but it's mythic and descriptive. It's not graphic in any sense. However, if the concept of sex between males upsets you, the very first sexual encounter you have here is between the Prince of Demon and the mortal boy who has been raised as his son. So there's this combination of lover, son, whatever. Again, very much mythic, poetic. No chewing books. Remember, no chewing books. Come here, come on. Very mythic, poetic element to it. And Sivesh is totally in love with the demon. We learn that the demons of the underworld are completely and utterly irresistible to most mortals. And so Sivesh can't resist Prince of Demons. He doesn't even want to. He's totally besotted with him until one day he's on the Earth's surface and a witch gives him a prophecy, and he realizes that he's actually a mortal born in the world. He begs his prince to let him stay in the world for one whole day and see the sun. And Azaran warns him that a demon whose love has been spurned is going to get his revenge, and it's going to be a horrible thing. We believe him. Sivesh doesn't, because he's a nice guy. How he was raised by demons in the underworld for his whole life and is still a nice guy, we don't know. But that's okay. Anyway, so there's this story, and Tanith does a great job of describing the mischief of demons. She describes it as completely within their nature to create mischief and bad things, in the same way that it's in the nature of mortals to be more complicated, I suppose. So anyway, that one doesn't end well for Sivesh. Oh my god, the name Sivesh doesn't end well to him, but it's a beautiful story and it's replete with imagery and lushness. Part 2. Azaran. Part 2 actually starts with the king above ground. That part is called Tricksters. Book 2 is called Tricksters. And in part 1, it talks about this King Zorias, who's completely and utterly the king. He has conquered 7 or 17 kingdoms. Everyone fears him. He's completely and utterly irresistible. And he is completely and utterly invincible. He's all these things, and it's meant to have to do with an amulet that story tells he once got off a demon. Anyway, he has this thing that he calls the Chair of Uncertainty, where any person can sit in it, and depending on the king's whim at the time is whether they emerge from it at all or what they emerge with. And one day, this shadowy figure comes and sits with him. It's Prince of Demons, who doesn't really like the attention that Zorias has been given, because Zorias is trying to pretend he's a god. Azaran takes exception to that. Bad things happen. The amulet is stolen from the king. The king is defeated. And the rest of book 2 is the king's daughter being brought up by a hermit. Horrible things happen to her. It's like, I've always said that if the one thing you never ever want to be is a female character in a Tanith Lee book, because almost without exception, horrible things happen to them. And almost without exception, there's no actual vindication or good thing at the end. And that is the case for King Zorashad's daughter. Still lush, still beautiful. There's a whole heap of stories, and it tells about how she eventually summons the demon, our Knight's Master, and makes a deal with him, and how she's eventually taken down by the brother of a man she has destroyed, because she turns into a very nasty person. Book 3 is the world's lore. And in this one, they're all pretty wild. This one's pretty wild too. You've got this girl, she manages to resist Azaran, who's trying to seduce her before she gets married. Because she manages to resist him, he gets really angry and does horrible things to her. There's a theme here, you can see. Which then go on into her bridegroom being turned into a monster, and her child, she's pregnant, being split into two. So you've got this amazing imagery of a soul on its way to being born, being split into two, half male and half female, and the psychological responses in the two individuals. A man who is all masculine energy with none of the feminine, a woman who has got none of the outgoing masculine. And as everything that Tanith writes, it's deep, there's a lot to it, it's interesting and evocative. So her mastery of the English language has often been noted, but more than that, her mastery of literature is supreme. If you read this, you can see links from all sorts of old mythologies, many fairy tales, little bits pop up briefly and then submerge again. You've got a silver pipe whereby you can summon the Lord of the Demons. You've got a whole race who live underground as miners, only living to make beautiful things while they're ugly themselves. You see stories of the air and stories of the sea, and I love it. I really do love this writing style. However, I love a bit of it. I can't read Tanith Lee continuously, and if you are in any way depressed, or if you know someone who is in any way suffering from depression, I would suggest that Tanith Lee's mythic storytelling might make it worse, because bad things happen all the time and very, very few good ones. Uplifting is not how you feel at the end of a story. You may be uplifted by the writing, which is gorgeous. Reading a Tanith Lee after you've read lots of other things is kind of like running your hand over this beautiful, lush, high-quality velvet after you've been touching too much scratchy polyester or polycotton. It's gorgeous and it's lush, but after a while it gets very, very heavy. And once or twice, late at night, I'd put this down and I'd think, I need something less depressing. Hello! Because depressing is what this can be very, very easily. It's very gothic, it's very beautiful. So, some people have said that the mood of this book is pervadingly beautiful, unearthly beauty, unlike Lee's previous works. I'd say that if you've read earlier books than this, the writing and the storytelling in this are definitely better. The atmosphere is stunning, but still, you've got that edge of depression. What else can I say about this? Beautiful, yes. Potentially depressing, definitely. Do I think that this has contributed to The Sandman? No. No, I don't. I think that the only person who could, for 1 second, say that The Sandman was stolen from the Flat Earth series is possibly someone who has never read one of them, or possibly both of them. I see no similarity. Except in the fact that you've got these layered stories within stories. Each part in this book has got stories and characters that are layered within each other. But every part and every story actually stands on in its own right very well. So I'm less unhappy that I don't have number 2. I don't think that you'd need to have read number 1 in order to enjoy number 2. I suspect that everyone in this series works perfectly well as a standalone, and it almost feels like a series of short stories with a common theme. So, yes, in that sense it's similar to Sandman. In that sense it's very readable as well. And I probably will go on to Delirium's Mistress, and there's another one in this series that I've already got pretty soon. What is the other one? Delusion's Master, that's it. I need a break, so. And I can't believe how close to the end of February it already is. So I'm going to read a bit of sci-fi. I might top up some of my stories, short stories of classic SFF, and then I will come back to Tanith Lee when I've got a little bit of a boost of sunshine. Thank you for watching. I am recommending Tanith Lee to most people, but it's mood reading. You have to be in the mood for gorgeous, lush language and beautiful stories. Any resemblance to the 1001 Nights is purely inspirational. I've read the 1001 Nights in a couple of different translations. I guess I can see why people say it was influenced by this. But there's no really common theme in my estimation beyond a few names that include a lot of Zs. Anyway, as I keep saying, thank you for watching. Read good books, maybe even Tanith Lee, but most especially her science fiction books. They're amazing. Mythic, poetic, fairy tales are great. I still say that her science fiction is the best stuff she ever wrote. Bye-bye. Read good books.